Welcome back. My name is Naso and we're here from Naso Art Studio, and today I'm going to show you how to do a simple lighthouse. We're going to start with a 16 by 20 canvas. It's gessoed, and I went ahead and put a layer of acrylic paint just to tint it a little bit, and then we're going to go ahead and draw the lighthouse on here. So I'm going to show you how to do that. My favorite way of drawing is actually with a piece of charcoal, which is actually easy to erase, easy to manipulate, and it actually shows up with some nice dark lines. So when you go to paint it, it makes it a lot simpler. If you do it with pencil, a lot of times graphite actually doesn't cover up too well with the paint, plus it is a lot harder to see. So let's start. I'm going to go ahead and rough out quick little sketch and get an approximation for where we want this lighthouse to be. Let's go about how tall. And it doesn't have to be perfect. A little triangle up here. So I have this, which is what they refer to as a kneaded eraser. You can find it at your nearest art store, Michael's, something like that. And you can manipulate it to put it anywhere you want. So if you want to do a fine point or just use the whole thing, you can. We're just going to go ahead and clean up some lines here real quick, just to give you an idea how well it works. It's that easy. Okay, let's see. This goes a little further out. Goes down. Like that. Go ahead and add a little more detail here. Put a little ball up here. Just a little circle. We'll put a little curve here instead of a straight line. We'll do that with this part as well, and this part as well. It makes it look more like you're looking up to it. We'll clean up some of these edges. Let's go ahead and take this. This is a railing. So we'll bring that across. Drop it down. You can make this as elaborate as you want, or you can make it pretty basic. Whatever works. Clean up this edge. Simple little lighthouse. Alright, so to go ahead and outline this, we're going to go ahead and use some black gesso. I decided to use this because it actually stands out really well. It dries fast, and that way we could go ahead and easily go and add the oil paint. And for this beginning part, we're going to basically use 3 brushes. So this is a small round brush, as you can tell. I don't know if you can see it from there. Anyway, you can actually get a point, so you can actually do some detail if you wish. This is actually just a number 6, I think. Number 6 flat brush. So it's thin here, wide that way, so you can actually do sharp lines if you wish. Make it a little easier. And this one I'm going to use to do shrubbery. This is just a 1-inch house brush. We're going to go ahead and tap in this with black gesso just to go ahead and fill it in and make it look like some shrubs. So I'm going to start with some black gesso. I'm just using a paper plate. The black gesso actually dries pretty fast, and this way I could easily just throw it away. So I'm just getting a little bit on there. We're going to go ahead and start working with the outline. Don't want a whole lot of paint on the brush because we want to try to make it as detailed as possible. And it's a little easier to control when there's not a ton of paint on the brush. And I'm using a paintbrush up and down. So I'm going to try to make a straight line up here. There we go. And we'll just fill this top part in. Now after this dries, we can erase some of these charcoal lines. Give it a smoother look. Bring that across and just fill this in. And the black gesso is also really, really black. So it helps for contrast. Let's bring that out a tad. Okay. Drop this down. We want this relatively even spaced, or evenly spaced. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but the closer it is, the nicer it'll look. Small arc. You don't want this to go straight across because it does have a curve to it. And this way when you curve it like that, it shows the shape. This flat brush really does help for making quick straight lines. This bottom base is all black. just fill that in. Fill it in like you're coloring a picture. Try to stay within the lines. Just like when you were a kid. Alright. A little more paint there. Do a quick little outline on the outside. You want this to be as symmetrical as possible so it doesn't throw it off. I took that brush and I actually put it in water so I could go ahead and rinse it out so it doesn't dry. Now I'm going to take my 1-inch brush and tap it in, and then this is all shrubbery and trees right through here, so we're just going to fill this in a little bit. Down toward this corner right here, it's going to be a lot darker. Up here, you're going to have light shining through some of this brush. So it's alright to leave little gaps. Now we want to make it look more organic so it's just not straight like a slide. So we can work on that too. Let's make this go up a little taller. Kind of like that. And then we could fill this in. And again, this is just the black gesso. As you can see, it's really dark and very simple to use. It's actually really thin, so it goes on nice and easy. Now, once we start getting up towards this area, we want to tap it some more. So that way you can still see through it. But once it gets down here, it starts getting more dense and it doesn't have much light shining through it at all. Plus I'm sure there's a hill on the other side. There we go. And you can always take a step back, check and see how it's going. And because we haven't worked with any oil paint yet, right now at this point you could easily correct anything you think is a mistake. Just tapping. And again down towards the bottom, nice and solid. Now if you want, you could get the sides. Or if you want to hang it up without a picture frame, actually gives it a nice finished edge. Get over here too. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and clean this paintbrush. We'll just put it in water and actually clean it with the water so it's water soluble. And then we're going to go ahead and let this dry before we go ahead and hit it with oil. But before we do that, we'll erase these little lines right here that are left over and clean it up a little bit. Alright, so I gave it a few minutes to dry. This area right here is definitely dry, but this down here is still a little wet. So I'm not going to go in this area at this point. Right now we're just going to go ahead and start working on the background right up here. So what I'm going to do is take some titanium white, and this is oil paint. We're going to mix it with a little bit of linseed oil. Like that. I don't know if you can see it, but we're going to mix this up really good so it makes it smoother. And again, I like to use the paper plates, in this case, over the palette. When I use a bunch of colors, I like to work with a palette because it does make it easier. But in this case, after this dries, you can just throw it away. Cleanup is so much nicer. So mix it up really good. So it's nice and thin. So it's more like a paste. You can easily just wipe it on if you wanted to, and it actually would stay on there without dripping, but it doesn't clump up like this part right here. And now I'm going to work with a little bit of violet so we can tint this. Not a lot. So we have a very light violet. Mix it up really good. Add a little bit more white. I wanted it to be lighter. There we go. Alright. So now we could dip the brush in here and paint it on that way, or in this case we could just wipe some on and make this process go a little smoother. Now I'm going to take a 2-inch house brush, loosen up the bristles, and now I'm going to go ahead and, in a circular motion, we're going to go ahead and brush this in. So because we thin this down, you can actually see some of this black that we're going over. Well, you still have a great outline now. Go ahead and detail over top at a later point, or later on during the painting. Now the reason I'm doing it this way is if you draw on top of the oil paint, it makes it difficult, and if you make a mistake, at this point it's actually very difficult to fix. Drawing on the dry acrylic, you can easily adjust that. This way I can still see where the lighthouse is. I know my drawing is relatively accurate. Now the other benefit to this is doing it this way. You can actually do the background and actually run clouds and stuff behind the lighthouse, or actually run it through the lighthouse, as opposed to up to. And when you stop, when you're painting up to something, it actually a lot of times leaves an edge. So at this point we can actually kind of go right through it with a nice smooth background. Actually ends up being a nicer painting that way. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and mix up some color for some clouds. We're going to use a little titanium white, phthalo blue, tad bit of black. So with the palette knife, let's go ahead and scrape a little of this up, just so we get it on one of the edges. And just apply it to the canvas. So as I was saying before, right now we could go right through this lighthouse, which will give it a consistent background. And because the lines will go ahead and show through when we're done, we could go ahead and go right over top of the lighthouse and add more detail and make it look like a much better painting. This. So back to the 2-inch brush, let's lightly go over this. And now we'll go ahead and start blending this out with a blender brush to give it a softer look. Now you can also grab a paper towel and wipe off the excess to make it easier to blend. So you can you can also add more white. Blend that in there. We'll go back to the blender brush so we can go ahead and refine it a little bit better. And again, we're going to wipe off the excess. Grab a little more titanium white and just a little bit of the violet. A little extra color up here. Let's see. So again, back to the blender brush and smooth it out. Grab a paper towel. I'm going to take some of this out of here. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and clean this up a little bit more. Went ahead and cleaned it up with a little bit of the mineral spirits. So I'll take some of that paint right off the top. And now, I'll grab a little bit of the lamp black. Actually go ahead and clean this up. And back to my small flat brush, just like in the beginning, but now you can actually see where the lines are, and make this sharper. Again, we're going to do a flat edge on this. So I can do this line up here. Now I'm putting my pinky up here so it holds it steady. We're just going to lightly touch. There. So I cleaned out and dried my brush with mineral spirits. Let's go into some of this titanium white with a little bit of the blue, and let's clean up these edges. Okay, so grab a little bit more titanium white. And we want this to have a bluish tint to it. That way it matches the rest. a little bit more of the blue shade right under here to make it look like shadow. Do another line right through here. And get some white. Get some down here too. A bit more blue, get some more shadow down here. Let's go back to the 1-inch brush, tap it into the lamp black, and then we'll clean up these edges. So just tapping in there. Now if you want, you can take a fan brush, grab a little bit of that black, let's go right up through here. Some little trees. To add just a little bit extra to the shrubbery over here, let's go ahead and make some dark green. So we're going to take some phthalo blue and a tad bit of yellow and mix it together. We don't want it to be black, and we don't want it to stand out a whole lot. So it's a really dark emerald green. And back to the 1-inch brush, just going to tap it in here. We don't want much on here. I'm just going to lightly touch certain areas. Now if we grab a little bit of the yellow, we hit a couple highlights.